Hi everybody, Brett here with AHP Power Tools new welder, the Alpha Tig 200. Today we're going to go through some of the functions to make it easier and show you how the machine works itself. Our first function we're going to go into our switch of stick or TIG mode. Second, we have our AC-DC switch. AC will be where you will be doing all of your aluminum welding. Once you flip down to DC, that is where you'll do your stainless and mild steels. Next, we have our 2T, 4T function. 2T meaning when you hit the trigger, your arc will start. When you let go of the trigger, your arc will stop. 4T is where when you hit your trigger, your start amps will start. Once you let go of your trigger, that is when you'll go into your main amps. When you hit the trigger for a second time, you'll go into your end amps. And as you let go of that, that is when your arc will stop. Next, we have our pulse feature. Our pulse, when it's on, you have two set alternating amperages that you'll be running through. When you go out of the pulse, you'll have a main amp that you'll use, unless you are using a foot pedal in which you have control of your amperage through your foot pedal. Finally, the last switch we have is the foot pedal or trigger operation. With your foot pedal, that is where you'll adjust your amperage by using your foot to control how much more heat or less heat you want to use. Where when you're in your trigger mode, that is when you will set on your panel what you're going to use and then weld. Next, we'll move on to all of our dials. Our first dial we're going to look at is the start amps. To look at what you're setting your start amps to, you will adjust your welder to 4T mode, and then you can adjust your start amps. From there, if you want to adjust your main amps, flip it back into 2T mode, and that is where you can adjust all of your main amps. Our next dial is our pulse amps, and this is going to be the low end of your pulse cycle, where your main amps is the high end of your pulse cycle. So if we have our main amps set to 200 amps and we set our pulse amps halfway, which would be 100 amps, we will be bouncing between 200 amps and 100 amps. Next, we have our end amps. End amps are your final amperage that you're going to use before you let go of the trigger for the second time on your 4T mode. Next, we're going into our pulse frequency in hertz, and that is how many times per second your machine will pulse when you're on the pulse mode. Next, we have our pulse time. Pulse time is a percentage of how long you will be in your main amps on your pulse mode. If you have your pulse amperage or your pulse time set to 50%, that means half the time you'll be on your main amps and half of the time you'll be on your pulse amps. Anything above 50%, you'll have more time on your main amps, where anything below 50%, you'll have more time on your pulse amps. And our next switch is the post flow. The post flow is just the extra gas after you're done your arc to shield your weld. And our final dial of the day is your AC balance. And all your AC balance is your cleaning action for when you're using AC function. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you understand more of your functions with your Alpha Tig 200, brought to you by AHP.